moving on the next section, which is going to be by Dr. Rajiv Sinha. He is the head of business excellence and learning and development at Larsen & Toubro. And the topic is empowering digital learning through learning experiences. So earlier we saw outcomes, then we saw content, and now we are going to experiences, my friend. This is how the flow has been made like that. So starting with outcomes, then we move on to the content, and then we move on to the experiences. So that's what Dr. Rajiv is going to cover. Dr. Rajiv is a knowledge management and e-learning professional with 21 years of enriching experience across wide gamut of functions, including knowledge management, e-learning, strategy formulation, learning management systems, SharePoint-based KM systems and knowledge management systems. He has designed and implemented knowledge management strategy and systems for learning for L&T, hydrocarbons, and developed HR excellence model, that is HREM for L&T. Of course, L&T, that is Larsen & Toubro. Rajiv also has an in-depth experience in CII Exim Bank Business Excellence and HREM assessment, and quite proactive in conducting workshops on the topics with knowledge management, balanced scorecard, and EFQM, Six Sigma, and value engineering. Over to you, Rajiv. Looking for a great session and looking for everybody's participation and questions in the session.
Thank you. Thanks, Jagmohan. Thanks for such a nice intro. So my presentation is in 3 parts, I will say. And first is that about the technology. I will talk briefly. Abraham has already covered about the technology part. Then some usage part, actually, the engagement part around the system and how L&T has adopted this. And then I will love to answer any questions, because that is the part I think that will be more and the interaction will give more value to me as well as the audience. So just to start, digital learning experience case study, and ATL Next you must be seeing on the screen that. And why ATL Next is that one is that e-learning or digital learning is not a new thing in the L&T ecosystem, and it is very old actually. Probably many of you might not have, from the audience I am telling, many of you might not have even started the e-learning journey. Way back in 2006, L&T started e-learning portal, and that time the name was given ATL, Anytime Learning. So, and just on the 15th of the December, we have celebrated 14th ATL day. So 14 plus years of the journey we had in the e-learning space. So very long history of and very long journey in the e-learning space. So the point here is that because of the long journey, because of the such a long period, a certain level of maturity is already there inside the organization as far as the e-learning is concerned. So when we decided that, okay, we need to change the platform, many new technologies coming into the market, and AI and data science and all those are the buzzword. And there are many offerings around that new technology. We also decided that, okay, we need to upgrade our system. The ATL system, which I'm talking, which was implemented in 2006, was a pure learning management system, LMS. And the traditional LMS, nothing new about that. We all know that how LMS works. So traditional system was there. And that was the time when market was buzzing with this AI, artificial intelligence, or NLPs, or the machine learning. So we also tried, okay, we need to upgrade ourselves, being a technology company, being such a, I will say that torch bearer in many fields, we need to upgrade ourselves also. And that's how this new technology, which is the LXP, that time it was a new thing actually. In 2017 we implemented. So almost close to 4 years. In this April we will be closing that 4 years of implementation of ATL Next. And that time ICOG, Abraham has presented, I think they just came with this product, and that product itself was evolving. So we adopted that product. We have customized, and then a lot of changes we have made to suit our need. And that's how, and then we have given the name also that, okay, because this is the upgraded version, so the name is given as ATL Next. And that is the story behind this name, ATL Next. So primarily I will be focusing on this LXP journey because that is the recent one and a lot of new things we have done. So that part I will be covering. This is the broad technology learning process automation system. This is a system view. This is Abraham has already said. But the important part is that this is the very intuitively tracks the learning style of each learner. What is the I will be mostly I will be touching the key features which helped us in improving the engagement, which helped us in making it part of the learning agenda of all the training managers. L&T is a big company. We all know that in divided in so many business units and the independent companies and all those things we know. So a huge organization putting into the on the training agenda of the or the training ecosystem of the organization is a big thing inside L&T. So the key features I will be touching in my presentation. So as we have just talked that, okay, this is the very intuitively it tracks the learning style of each learner. And broadly here, the three learning style is covered: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So WAC style of the learning is the model is adopted in this. So the point here is that why it is important, because every learner has its own style. Someone prefer or naturally they are inclined towards the visual style of the learning. So in the recommendation engine, more visual contents will be pushed. When it is the auditory or kinesthetics, then more textual based content will be pushed to the learner. So that recommendation engine takes care of the learning style of the individuals and thus improving the adoption as well as also contribute in the adoption and engagement of the tool as well as the content. And competency framework, that is the second part. And what we have also done is that we have mapped actually the entire coverage, entire offering in the L&T's competency framework. We have our own competency framework with the different levels of the people. Means the management level. For the senior management, there is a certain competency required. For the middle management, certain competency required, and so on actually. So each and every content is mapped with the competency, as well as each and every person is also mapped with the competency requirement. And there the power of technology is coming, because 75,000 users manually mapping is next to impossible tasks. And here this technology helped us in mapping individual versus competency versus the content, and also versus that whether this content is for the beginners or the beginners level or the intermediate level or the expert level. So this kind of mapping helped us in properly pushing the content to the learner. And because the machine learning is involved, so we know that, okay, because of this machine learning, the over the time recommendation engine gets refined over the time. So that's why we call it as the learning process automation. One system is pushed, so one system is made, many things are automatically happening because of the machine learning component. This side, as we see that user content, there is many things goes into making basically at the back end, I will say we can compare it that the system makes a user model, or you can say a virtual persona of the person that way, because it takes the inputs from our HRMS system about the user, their grades and other things, actually whatever is applicable to build that model, the competency requirement, his or her own level of the competency and etc. So that things goes as an input to build the model, user model, or the virtual persona of the learner. Regarding the content, we talked the content from where we will source or we will pull the content. So we have multiple sources actually we have used for the content. There are web curated contents where many free contents are available on the web, because nowadays actually content is not that much big issue. If we see on the web, actually there are so many freely available contents are available. So a lot of curation has been done around, everything revolves around the competency framework of the Larsen & Toubro. So curated content, I think as of now, more than 10,000 plus curated content are available in our system, and each is tagged with the different competency. It may be from the TED Talk, or it may be SlideShare, or it may be YouTube. From wherever it is available freely, that is content is curated. Then there is a third party contents. We have also subscribed premium content from many sources. We have the content from the Cross Knowledge, that company is is an arm of Wiley Publication. We also have many Harvard Management. We have content from HMM. We have the content from DDI, which is the Development Dimension International. We also have technical content from many other sources like the engineers and the red vectors. Probably many are very specific to L&T, you may not, and very technical content, but many content providers. There are third-party content provider, and everyone is integrated with this system to give the learner or give the user a single view. He is interacting with either through app or through the web. Then there are proprietary content also, because many, especially in the technical side of the content, there are many content which is very specific to L&T. So our own subject matter experts has helped in building those proprietary content, and that is also pushed into this. And everything is fed into the system, and then the recommendation engine keeps on working over there. So I think these things are, so web crawlers, SME curation, and there are something called social curation feature is also there in the system, where if suppose I am not liking the content, I can dislike, and once enough traction comes for the dislike of a particular content, it goes kind of in the archive. It is not technically the archive, but it goes somewhere, goes deep down into the system, and it doesn't come up. It doesn't appear in the recommendation engine. So a strong content aggregation and curation engine, by curating and aggregating the content from the multiple source, and we are giving a single view, single interface to the user for all behavioral as well as the technical content. And that also is a very helpful thing for improving the engagement, for improving the adoption. Then the other is that learn, measure, and reflect. And because without the measurement, it is very difficult, because in the learning, this is always a challenge. ROI, etc., is always talked. And I can present a practitioner's view. I'm not an academician in that sense, that what is the ROI and how to calculate, because that I believe that is still a debate which is in all the forums of the L&D I have seen. So ROI is an entirely different thing actually, and we really don't know whether there is any way to calculate ROI for these behavioral based training. So, but still we need the measurement, and the measurement is that, of course, the basic measurements are like we all know that the man hours of the training man hours, or the training man days, or the number of courses completed. Those kind of basic measures are always available. But here in this system, we have very robust kind of learning index. We call it learning index, but I think that ICO call it HGV, has a grasp of value, but for sake of simplicity, we are calling it as a learning index. And this index is a very interesting index, very robust also, because we have seen over the last 4 years how it is progressing, and how, and we can draw a correlation between the index and the performance of the person to a limited extent. It is not that we have done a very deep data analytics in that side, but the first cut analysis shows that yes, this learning index is the robust index, and we can correlate the learning index value with the performance, which generally comes through the performance rating of the person. And it has the 3 component that I think Abraham has already talked about, that is the retention and recall, educate and depth and width, and the educate and share. On these 3 planes, there are 23 parameters which is tracked, and then with all those 23 parameters, with the help of the different weightages, it is finally converted into one single index. And we understand the limitation of any index, that any learning in any index, absolute value of the index has no meaning actually. It can be 10 or it can be 100, but it doesn't have any meaning. But over the time, when we see the trend of this kind of index, these numbers starts making sense, and that we are actually following. Okay, over the year, for any person, whether it is improving or not improving, or the rate of improvement, those kind of data we can see. And we also use the same index for the gamification. We have the leaderboards built around this learning index, the traditional kind of the badges, or the some kind of recognition around this based on the learning index. And this learning index, interesting part is that for each competency we measure. If suppose in my organization, critical thinking is the competency requirement, Then for the critical competency, what is the learning index for the learner? So we, end of the day, what I get is that the list of the people, list of the employees who have a high learning index in the critical thinking or any competency. I just take one example. I just took one example, but on any competency, I can get the people who have that kind of learning index. And over the time, because this is a graph, this is a trend line, it shows that yes, this person has a required level of the competency. So we talked about this. We have mapped the competencies, which is the organization-wide competency framework. We have talked about this cognitive recommendation engine. WAC model we are following. On the go is the content recommendation. Basically, the app, app is also available on the Android as well as the iOS. We talked about this knowledge quotient and reinforced learning because of the recommendation engine. The probable skill and knowledge gap. This is helping us in pushing the content. What essentially this system is actually doing is that if suppose my index is, suppose the topper's index is suppose X, or let us say assume it is the 100 and my index is coming as 40. So there is a gap of 60 points. So system also actually understand that, okay, there is the huge gap. And then it compares my score with the top score, and then it automatically draws a learning path for me. And based on that learning path, the recommendation engine starts recommending. So this is all inbuilt. Actually, that learner doesn't know that how it is happening, but at the back end, the gap between my index and the topmost index actually point, it automatically creates a learning path and starts or taking this input in the recommending the required kind of content for the learner. So learn, measure, and reflect. That is the part actually I wanted to just cover here. And data science part, I think we have just covered all things. So I will just go. So this is the technology part, and then what is the impact actually we track, and then track as well as we see that what is the impact on key stakeholders. We try to understand that, okay, this is the huge system we have built over the time, and there is a depth in the whole implementation. It is not just few courses we are talking or few something. We are talking about so many employees and so many investment. So what exactly is the impact? Other than that, the cost part, which has their own one way of measuring of the measurement or the ROI part, but other than that also what exactly we are getting. So all the stakeholders we identified, okay, for the e-learning or the training, actually who all are our key stakeholders, and we divided in three parts: business leaders, employees, and the business HR. These are my three key stakeholders. And what actually business leaders are asking from me, they are looking for the upskilling of their employees, be it the behavioral or B is the technical. But we also keep in mind that L&T is a predominantly engineering company. So technical skill has their own way of the looking. But converting engineers into managers, that is the different kind of skilling is required, upskilling is required. And the way L&T is growing, the way the business is growing, actually we need more and more leaders, more and more managers. While technocrats has their own career paths and etc., but we need to convert those technocrats into the leaders and the business managers also. And that upskilling is required at a very mass scale, the way actually L&T is growing. So what is the cost-effective way of the upskilling? And this provides us that cost-effective way of upskilling the huge mass, actually huge mass. Those who know the L&T, they know that how big this organization is, and the kind of diverse field we are actually running. For the business HR, what they are looking actually, one is that they look for the high training density. Obviously, they always look, okay, more and more people should be trained. So then they see the depth of the training as well as the width of the training. And this provides a very good metrics or good matrices for them. A scalable competency development, there again, they are looking for that competency development of the employee, or whether it is scalable or not. In the classroom, 30 people batch or the 40 people batch or 50 people batch, that is the upper limit. I don't think really more than 30 or 40 actually we ever run a classroom training program. But through this, actually, we have the scalable competency development model, and that is actually the impacting the business HR. And for the employees, it is providing a personalized learning experience because of those cognitive recommendation engine. So putting together, the important point is that this kind of system is helping us in fulfilling the the requirement of all the key stakeholders. Just few data means as I said, this is a very old initiative, means this is we are touching the 4th year. If we see that conversion ratio, and that is close to 80% are the people who are, we actually track the footfall also, footfall and actually the conversion, because see, we always have this issue that people are coming on the website, they are kind of doing a window shopping, I will say. If you are going into the mall and then not buying anything, not purchasing anything, it is like a footfall is there on the in the mall, but you are doing a window shopping. But while that metric is important, but for the shop owners, actually how much purchasing you are doing, that matters. So we track actually both things: how much is the footfall, how many people are, or how many employees are actually coming, and they're actually consuming some course, whether they are just coming and going and like a, just to compare, is that the windows are doing the window shopping, or really they are consuming any course. And so that is the conversion ratio is coming to 80%. So while this is the data for this year, we have just to show the depth of the adoption, I am putting this year's data, but this is more or less ratio remains the same the last year also and prior to that also. And why it is important, that not that pandemic has pushed, and that's why these numbers we are telling. The pandemic has, of course, in the month of April and May, when that pandemic was at peak, this ratio, this data was different actually for those 2 months, but broadly this number is same for the last year also. So we have 80% conversion rate. Means the people who are coming, the employees who are coming on the website, 80% of the employees are consuming at least one course in this year. The data 4.3 this year, this data I have collected till December data, actually December, end of the 31st December, this is the January MIS I am presenting. So 4.36 lakh hours of the training is consumed. And we have the kind of thinking, or kind of, it is not in the KRA driven target, but yes, we always try that, okay, if the 4 mandates of the training is targeted, average 4 mandates of the training is targeted, at least 1 mandate of the training should be through e-learning mode. Of course, this year and coming year, this number will change because pandemic has shown us a different way of doing the things. But as of now, this is the situation. More than 5,000 users per month, they come course completed. This is the buddies and mentors. This is that the learning index we also use to identify the people as a buddy, identify employees as a buddies or mentor. Means the learners who crosses a certain points, actually suppose 100 points or 100 in learning index in one competency someone has crossed, we identify them, we recognize them, we reward them in the form of ATL buddy. We call them as ATL buddy actually, or the mentors. Mentors is not, we use the word buddies, mentors, just to explain the term. I have put that senior people we call mentor and junior people we call buddies, but basically it is that a certain number, if suppose someone is crossing in the ATL, learning index, we recognize them. And we also use those people in various training programs. We request them to come and train the other people also. Because we know if he has crossed, suppose 100 learning index, he has to be a good person in that particular subject. It is not easy to get that kind of number by just going through 1 or 2 courses. So that helps a lot to us. So that is the, as of now, 2,500 plus a strong community we have built around that. And we call them as ATL buddies. This is the learning index dashboard for a particular means learners dashboard. If you see, this is a snapshot, and why I put especially data science powered cognitive learning solution, because the lot of actually AI, ML, etc. is coming into picture. This is the typical dashboard one learner see. These all are like different competency. Like in this case, something whatever you are seeing, that like a strategic thinking is one competency. Change management is another competency. So it is showing that, okay, in this competency, what is my score? Actually, this letter is not coming, but I have put there in this this part that what is my score, what is the top score, and what is my percentile score. So I immediately, whenever I come on the leaderboard, I can know, I will see that, okay, what is my score and what is the gap between my score and the top scorer and where I stand. And if I am top scorer, there will be a gold trophy, golden trophy, and that way. Top 10 learner, this is the gamified leaderboard. The top 10 learner also comes on the screen, that okay, and that is within across L&T as well as it is in the my department. We call it actually internally every business unit as IC, Basically, those are the big business units. So in my business unit, who are the top scorers? So that is the way actually it will show. This also shows that over the time, actually, what is the improvement in my learning index. So there are two methods. I think it is not the real-time data calculation, but weekly and fortnightly data gets calculated, and the new index comes into picture. And then there is also suggestion, which is basically the suggested learning path for the user to improve learning with respect to the. So that this gives a very comprehensive picture about that learner, because there are various kind of competency. One is that which is the organization's competency framework. There are the technical competency framework. So different pages actually will show in the different techniques. Similar graph actually appears for the technical competency also. So this is a very good dashboard from the learner's point of view, as well as this also help the HR in discovering the talent discovery, we call, in the form of and we identify those talent or recognize those talent for the as ATL buddy. We also use that data, actually. It is not only the individual. We also use that data to map the relative position of different business units. Again, that I said that IC is our more internal term. But this is this kind of graph. This is the representative data, not the real data. But this kind of graph actually we map. This is 2x2 graph. If you see that percentage of learner completed course. And this is the average hour per learners. And this helps us in mapping the whole organization that, okay, where they are standing. Which business unit is doing good and which those who are not actually up to the mark in that this particular journey. So it shows us the relative position, and that also help us in drawing the different kind of strategy, because someone who is very low in this percentage, suppose someone is in this red zone, actually they are lacking the awareness part, actually, simply meaning that this e-learning is the awareness of the e-learning is very, very low in that. So there is no point in adding more and more quality content there, because whatever the quality content I will put, it is of no use, because that awareness level itself is low, actually. So for them, the strategy is that to first you make people aware about the whole thing. So not many promotional activity and etc. will go into those kind of departments, because their first aim is to improve the percentage adoption. And once the percentage adoption is high, then only the quality content and those kind of things comes into picture, and then move into the green zone. So this green zone is kind of aspirational zone where every business unit wants to go. And this helps, because see, ultimately why it is important that lot of data, this system is generating lot of data. So many data is generated by the system. So why not to use that data into improving the engagement, driving the people, motivating the people, not only people, actually the business unit and the departments to move ahead. And that's why this kind of graphs and this kind of reports actually helps a lot. So that we have used all those available data and made this kind of graph, and that is helping us a lot in this. So this is in brief, actually, because I will stop here, because many things are there. So if you have any question, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. Great session. I think all the audience is full of questions. The way questions are pouring in. Let me start with the first question. We'll try to answer for about 5 questions. How do you measure learning index? I mean, more clarification of HGV would be helpful.
Yeah. So while Ibrahim is there, he can take in more detail. But for us, actually, there are three planes which is used in measuring the learning index. One is that retention and recall. Other is that depth and width. And third is the educate and share. Let us take one example, actually. Probably that will help in understanding. When I'm talking depth and width, basically ultimately everything needs to be converted into the clicks, because system understand only clicks. Whatever action you are doing on the system, on the computer or on your app, actually that only can be tracked. So that depth and width is converted into multiple sub points. And how it is that, okay, on the same topic, suppose the example I just taken, customer centricity. On the customer centricity, what all things it can track, actually? Okay, what kind of content I am reading, whether I am going a 1 minute or 2 minute video on that customer centricity, or I am reading the Harvard article on that customer centricity. So kind of media I am using, the kind of articles or kind of content I am consuming, all those things can be tracked and that finally will decide about that, okay, depth and width. On the same topic, I am reading a book, definitely I will have the much higher knowledge compared to the one who has just consumed only 2 or 3 minutes video. So that is the way actually every plane is converted into clicks. Basically, it is a click actually, but click, behind the click there is a logic, and that logic or algorithm is basically converting, and then there are different weightages to each parameter.
So
Thank you, Dr.
Ibrahim,
Rajiv.
would like to add something.
Thanks, Rajiv. Just to add to what Rajiv was saying, we look at 23 different parameters across these 3 planes, and what Rajiv just described is the clickstream behavior. That's what gets linked into the machine learning algorithms, and with each click and with each behavior, the platform keeps learning, and that's where the HGV score gets built. So this is a tried and tested algorithm now, over a period of last 3 years. It's patent pending. Happy to have more technical discussions with everyone who's interested, post the summit as well. So I hope we've been able to do some justice to the question.
Yeah. Thank you. In fact, last question, Praveen has also the same question. I think you have answered that. That what are some platforms that are behind this integrated analytics? That is, ICOG is the platform, and how does click rate, consumption, and behavior data come through? Okay. So going to another interesting question, which is there, as the learning and development professional, what level of knowledge and skills of data science is needed, considering the rapid growth of AL, ML, and DS?
Sir, if I may answer this, there is a session later today on conducted by Anurup from Cognate, founder CEO, and he is an expert and authority on AI and ML. And this conference aims to be able to bring that or at least kindle that spirit of data science amongst all L&D professionals. So I recommend that this that you attend that session, and I'm sure that you will go absolutely much more richer in your knowledge.
Yeah, I will just add, Ibrahim, here. See, as a L&D professional, you need to understand the application of technology. Simple. You are not going to become expert in the data science. You are the L&D professional. Simple.
Absolutely.
So the digital mindset is important. You need to understand that, okay, how I can use this technology. Rest part, let the experts handle, because those data science and AI and ML is in subject itself. So you see the application, you see the usage. You are a practitioner. L&D professionals are the practitioner of AI, ML. So to that level of the knowledge is required, and I think that is good enough. You focus on your learning and development.
Yes, thank you very much. You focus. Our job is on learning and development, and we should focus
development.
On
yes.
Leave the other things on the professionals like ICOG and
yes.
other people. And of course, I totally agree with you that the kind of systems which I've also built in my organization, it is through the vendors and the agencies partners which has helped us to build up all this.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we should be focused on our business outcomes kind of thing and learning prep. Thank you very much, Dr. Sinha, for the lovely session.
Thanks, everyone.